All right. Ready to go?
Yep.
All right. Chair, Harry Meyer.
Yep.
Vice Chair, Gary Delvaux. Here. Jim Bloomer has to be excused. Alderman Joe Moore.
Present.
Colleen Parma has to recuse herself. Matt Schuler.
Here.
And Tom Walker.
Here. Jim Murbrick is, oh, he's under there. As for a motion then to approve the agenda, sent out to all of us.
So moved.
Motion by Gary, second by Tom. Those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
The one item under new business, consideration with possible action on the amended and restated cooperation agreement regarding the room tax revenues. I assume somebody's going to start us off?
Sure. I'll
All right.
start us off and I think just provide a little context of where we were, where we are.
Where we're going.
Where we want to be going. So if you just want to flip through the slides, I think one thing just wanted to talk about today is, how the city has supported regional tourism development. I just think it's really important. I think, we've kind of been misportrayed in terms of not being a team player. And I just want to make sure that we get out there that, about what we're talking, just very briefly. Secondly, some issues about the cost that came up from last time to this time. I would like to set the record straight with you guys in terms of, where we got numbers and how those numbers have been refined. I think, then the question that you talked about last time was, how are we keeping KI competitive as we deal with room tax issues in the future? And then how do we move forward? Based on the cooperative agreement and the, what's before you today, what's the path forward and what does RDA have to say about that? So I just wanted to just quickly go through because I think it's really important for this to get out there in the next slide. And if you just look at the room tax funds of what we've done and what's been proposed. Go back to, next slide. Oh, yep. So this is basically looking, all right, when we started this thing back in 1999 or in 2000 we started paying, here's the money that we're putting into KI, the original. And these are our bond payments up through 2029. So just under $1 million all the way up to just over $1 million by 2029. And then in 2012, we amended these agreements to put some additional funds into the KI expansion. And as you can see, that was a substantial amount, just in terms of the cost of the project, but you've been over there, you've seen the finishes, and you've seen what it's done. On the flip side, we've also seen that return on the investment in terms of the numbers of conventions that we've had there and the performance of it. And I think it's really important for RDA to see that because this is our asset. So we look at what's been done then. Also part of that original 1999 agreement was payments for the Resch Center. And so the bond payments for the Resch Center, so prior to our KI expansion, out of every room tax dollar, about 25 cents went to KI, 75 cents went to the Resch. And so you look at then, all right, what has been room tax over that last period. So it's actuals from 2000 to 2016, and then projected out at 3% growth from here. And as you can see, there's been pretty much enough room tax to cover all this debt service. But then you also look at what's been done by the city of Green Bay. And you look at the actual numbers, no, you can go back, and what's been done by the city of Green Bay. And that green line in there shows that room tax revenues that we've collected, and these are actual numbers from 2000 until 2016, shows that in general, we've had enough room tax to pay for the KI.
About how much is it annually
The room tax?
for the kid?
So in here, look, collected, starting back in 2000, I would say we were probably about 30% of the room tax. Most recently, we're about 43% of the room tax. So if you say, look, we continue to grow the room tax at 3% a year, and we stay at 43%, there's some bumpy years in terms of 2014, 15, 16. Which, and Diana can explain, why we had the naming rights revenue, because we knew there were going to be some bumpy years in there in terms of, look, our room tax revenues may not be enough to cover it. But in essence, we projected out, and I think being good fiscal stewards, those bond payments, we've had enough, if we were on our own, room tax to pay for KI and KI expansion. If you go on more, and if you look at what the bond council is projecting out at 4.76% growth rate, in the past and moving forward in the future, in generally, the city of Green Bay is a contributor to the room tax pool. We put in more than we take out.
7 million.
Yeah, I would say all then, if you look at cumulatively adding up that 2000 to about now, we're a net donor of about 7 million. So I think what's really important is, that notion of the cooperation agreement is to help us ride out those rough patches. And that is sometimes, if we do have off years, heaven forbid we have another disaster and tourism takes a slide, there's enough money then to shift around because we pooled it to be able to make both KI and the RESH work. But I just think it's important to be out there that in terms of just looking at yourselves and RDA and the city about being good fiscal stewards. We've looked at it, look, what if there wasn't that cooperation agreement, could we still do it? And I think that is. But it goes back to this notion then of, us not being cooperative or taking from the pool. And I just wanted to show the RDA, and I think it's important for the RDA to see that we are a net contributor to that room tax pool. All right, so the other thing that has come up basically between the last meeting and now is, all right, what should an expo hall cost? And I appreciate Alderman Moore for calling me on this. I think the numbers that I've been talking about before, I'll admit, I was incorrect. 122,000 was the footprint, that is the open floor space of the expo hall. That was what we referred to in the AE comp study when I looked at the documents for definitions of an expo hall, saying around 100,000. But as Alderman Moore corrected me, that is just the open floor space. All in, when you add in Shopko Hall, that renovation, the pre-function area, bathrooms, hallways, all of that, it's probably closer to about $213,000. I'm sorry, 213,000 square feet. For that cheap, we'd probably build it right now. So look, it's not 760 per square foot, 436 or 413, depending on, there's two different numbers that were used in terms of 93 million or 88 million. Look, I just want to put that into context, going back then to just some of the other facilities that were mentioned in the study and what those costs were. Look, I mean, they're a little bit all over the board, and they named 4 of them that they called out and saying, look, these are the AECOM facility, or the study showed these 4 facilities, and these are comparable facilities. I'd probably say that Swiftel Center on top and the Big Sandy Superstore Arena on the bottom, look, I'm not the consultant, but those really aren't what we're building, or it doesn't seem like they're building. Those are arenas for sporting events and things like that. The 2 in the middle, the Expo Center and the Convention Center, are more in line of that Expo Hall space in terms of what we're talking about. So the top one's probably a little too low and the bottom one's probably a little too high. But I think they also did mention it's important to look at what are some of these other Expo halls in the state and what are they going at. And so these are more recent projects that were done in the state and just showing what that square footage is. My opinion, I still think, look, that cost is a little bit high. It's not outrageous, I feel, or out of it as it was previously, but I feel it's important for me just to work with you and give some understanding of where I came from with my numbers. I think I'm pretty upset and very disappointed that I get accused of manipulating numbers or being deceitful for you, and I think we have a good enough working relationship that I will own up to an honest mistake in doing so. And so I just wanted to provide that information for you, because I think that was, when we left the last meeting, one of the concerns. So with that, I mean, you're just looking at, the Expo Hall costing, some of the numbers that we've been looking at with those square footages. But I think what we really wanted to talk about today is what, kind of the RDA left staff with last time, and that is, number one, how do we support an Expo Hall? I think that was a clear directive from the RDA, is how do we move forward in being able to support an exposition hall. Secondly was, the cost of the project. I think, there were some concerns about that cost. I think showing the square footage maybe puts it a little bit more in line. Look, again, I'll say I still think it's a little bit high, but it's not as out there as it was. And then the third, which I mentioned, is, how do we keep KI Convention Center competitive? And I think, what was talked about last time is, at the end of the day, we, RDA, and ultimately the city with the backing, is the only one, left with the liability. And I think, Commissioner Weber, you had talked about that when all is said and done, we're the ones who are left holding this. I mean, it's an asset, but then when it's 20 years old, 30 years old, 50 years old, it's a liability. And so how could we go through and look at making KI competitive? And initially, we looked at, here's our existing agreement right now, which we're operating under. That's the 2012 cooperative agreement. And you see, look, projected out at 3%. This is the net room tax coming in. Here's what we're paying off for RESH and KI. So then here's what's left over. And per the current agreement, starting in 2030, any excess, City of Green Bay is on its own to pay off KI2, which I showed, look, we can cover the debt service, but any excess then created by the city comes back to the city. So if we're growing at 3%, we're talking about a lump sum of about $60 million, which is, I think, what we talked about last time. If it grows at 4.76%, which is, I think, now what the bond council is using, and I believe they're here to discuss that. If room tax grows at that rate through 2050, then we're looking at, all in total for this pool, about $422 million worth of room tax. Gresham KI, look, will stay the same, the payoff. Coming back then to the city, we're talking about $110 million. And a lot of that is on the back end. And really after when you look at 2044, once KI2 is paid off, there's a significant chunk of change there. And so I think what we've been trying to look at is, we look at this chunk of money of the room tax available at $209 million and then 110 plus $110 million, which was coming back to the city of Green Bay. I think staff felt like there's enough money there to both do an expo hall and retain some funds to keep KI competitive. And I think what you asked us to do for the county is go forward and, one, I think ask to separate the room tax agreements from the sales tax ordinance. I think, as we discuss, and, it appears as though, they're tied together right now. County board for their ordinance has said, look, by August 15th, we've got to figure these out, or both, really don't go forward. But to have some more time to discuss the sales, or to talk about the room tax on that. I think that's an appropriate ask, and given that, look, if we're not bonding potentially until 2019 or 2020, there's some time to work on the numbers and then maybe get and refine those numbers, seeing where 2017 comes in. Also asking then for ways to keep KI competitive. And I think we came up with two ways or two asks of the county. And that was, one, that after paying its debt service obligations, the city will contribute a specified percent of its remaining room tax funds towards an expo hall. So that, look, that $110 million pool, we'll say, look, X percent we want to keep for us, for KI, and the rest of it we'll give to the expo hall. Or after paying, we all go into the pool, and after paying all the debt service obligations, the county then deposits a specified amount into a capital improvement fund for the KI campus. And I think what we've talked about before in that waterfall of, all right, KI1, RESH, KI2, Expo Hall, that there would be another bucket for KI in order to provide that. So with that, those have been our requests out to the county. I know representatives from the county are here. I know and I guess I can let the mayor speak a little bit in terms of where we're at. Just as it stands right today, the cooperation agreement, I think that is before you, is the same agreement that was here, I think when we met on the 14th. So with that, I'm happy to take questions, or Mayor, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about just process and moving forward and where RDA would like to go from here.
I think at this time, it would be appropriate for you to hear from me as the mayor and the county executive at the same time. So I don't know if you need to open the floor to hear from Troy, but we're going to speak together on this next.
Sure.
Where are we going from here?
Motion on the floor.
Okay, motion by Joe, second by Tom. Those in favor say aye. Opposed? The mayor and the county executives, or?
Right. Should wear my other shoes.
Are you arm in arm?
Yeah, don't take this the wrong way, but I need a photo here.
Take it quick.
Well, they're both smiling.
Well, thank you, Dr. Vonk, for bringing us to where we are today. Kevin Vonk is the smartest guy in the room. He's a PhD. He studies this really more than he should. He was on vacation last week and kept emailing, what about this and that? So now that you know where we're at, the direction we had last week, we can all appreciate that this new agreement is a lot of money. It's over $100 million that we as a city are giving up, being asked to give up to the control of the county, right? That's what we're doing. We have a 2012 agreement, where, as Kevin said, the excess comes back to us, and then in 2030, we capture all the money. They're asking that this future money on room tax all goes under the control of the county. Now, we're going to talk about that in a second, but you need to understand, or everyone needs to understand, we need room tax to keep Green Bay competitive. We need it for KI1, for KI2, for capital improvements. We need it for the campus, the KI campus downtown. We need money to continue to attract businesses, millennials, and these are things, tourists, that are legal with room tax. Room tax can be used to develop, to put new lighting in, to maybe do something along the west side shore. Room tax money can be used for that. But what the county is asking us to do is move the control of this $100 million over to them. Tough for me to give up control, but I want to say at the same time that we've had numerous meetings with the county executive and with the county administrator who used to work for me, and their heart's in the right spot. I mean, they understand how important the downtown and the KI campus are for this community. They know that we need an expo hall, and they know that we agree that we need an expo hall, and they understand that we see that area as the south end of Green Bay. That's part of us. That's a nice bookend for us. That, downtown, Bay Beach, I mean, that we very much need that, and we want to support the expansion or the new convention center. So after just a lot of meetings into, really, I mean, you think back when I was in sales school, and it's building relationships, and I think we've built up a pretty good relationship again, and not to say we never had a good relationship. I think things, get stronger and maybe a little bit weaker at times, and we feel like it's a strong relationship again, and we really feel that we can go along with this agreement, and we're trusting that the county executive and his team will invest in the KI campus in downtown Green Bay. We are trusting that they will use the revenues to pay down the debt as quickly as possible, and there won't be interest on interest. We trust that we are going to be part of the conversation on future use of the sales tax and the future use of the development of that whole Veterans Memorial Park area. So we've got a good feeling that this can work. But this can work for the city, for the county. We got a good feeling that Troy and Chad and some other leaders in the community are going to be looking out for the KI campus and for the downtown. And so with that, I mean, we tried to get some amendments made, and the appetite wasn't right to go back and get amendments. Some people have voted on this and they're done and don't want to do it again. Again, we want the expo hall to happen. We want to continue the development and investment in downtown Green Bay, and we believe that the county executive will support that.
Well, before I begin with the statement, I wanted to really re-emphasize what I had said, a number of times, whether it was in person or at this meeting, that I firmly believe as a community we are much stronger when we're standing together. It wasn't, what we saw that took place between the community support behind this, what we saw with the county board support, it truly defined what I think when you have a community backing for a plan, it speaks volumes. And I think rightfully so, the city has been looking at the window of time and what's the future look like. How do we make sure that the largest economy, the largest city is looking out for the future of the overall regional impact? Because I don't know of anybody that wouldn't say that what's good for Green Bay is not good for the surrounding communities. It's often said what's good for Brown County is good for the counties around it. So from that premises, I think when you have the mayor and the county executive, the county board, the city council working together, we are a much stronger community. And I think what the mayor and I have spoken about is the importance, because even when we've had individual conversations, the question comes up, how do you protect these two very important campuses, whether it's the Expo Hall with the Rest Center or the KI campus? And they both mean a lot to the overall growth and economic impact to this region. So from that standpoint, I think the conversations that we've had have been very important in terms of setting the stage, because in 1999, what was discussed then was essentially setting the stage for what conversation we're having now. I think what the mayor and I are prepared to do and what we're stating is that we realize that in the future, downtown has to be a priority. And if we haven't heard that through the Chamber's strategic plan, if we haven't heard that from a number of different municipalities, that having a vibrant downtown is critical for the overall health of this community. And so from that standpoint, protecting and making sure that there's a commitment from the county to make sure that we're engaged in these conversations, that we see that as a priority, making sure that the KI is part of our conversation, that is important for the city to hear. And I'm prepared to make a statement that really talks about that importance, at least from my perspective as a county executive. And I would argue that the community, a lot of the people who are behind me now, would argue that what I'm about to say is important equally, because in 2012, as the mayor and I were talking about, the community did come together, and they did say the KI expansion was important. And so the community together said, let's invest in the city of Green Bay. And so from that standpoint, I think it's important for us to stay in that course. And I think it's important for the mayor and the county executive from our positions to make sure that we're setting the position or the stage for future leadership and county boards and city councils and the RDAs, the CDAs, to make these future decisions. Because, you know, the Resch Center, the new Expo Hall, the KI, $500 million invested of room tax dollars. It is a sizable amount of money. And so we need to make sure that we're protecting those assets in the future. So with that, I'd like to say, I would like to personally thank Green Bay Mayor Jim Schmidt for his support of the new Expo Center. This means a great deal to me and our surrounding communities to know we have his support to move this project forward. It's clear that our community leaders understand the economic impact this project will have on all of our local economies and help maintain Greater Green Bay as a top tourist destination. Our community has a simple question before it regarding the room tax dollars. Do we pool our resources together and build the types of venues needed to attract greater tourism and investment dollars to our area, or do communities go it alone and miss the real long-term economic growth? This simple question has a simple answer, and that is why today I am pledging my support as Brown County Executive to Mayor Schmidt and the City of Green Bay in their future efforts to keep the KI Convention Center in downtown Green Bay as a main tourist attraction. I look forward to working with the mayor in his future efforts to keep the KI Convention Center in the downtown Green Bay up to date and successful in attracting events to our downtown area. This is not only important for our downtown, but for our entire region. Our communities will have another opportunity to pool our resources together to strengthen our economic growth and attract investment and create an environment that enhances our quality of life and attract hardworking families, businesses, and millennials to our area. And from that standpoint, it's critically important for us to make sure that we are working together. And I understand that when you have a county board, a city council, and then two electeds for an executive branch, it's tough to get us all on the same page. But I see that as a community, we've done some amazing things in the last 5 years. And I hope that we can continue that momentum going forward, because I know my time as a county executive is short-lived in terms of the big picture. And so the opportunity that we have right now is to work together versus pulling ourselves apart. So I look forward to your support in this endeavor.
Where was this 3-4 months ago? 'Cause that's-
Look, I would answer that question because I think that is a really good question. And we've talked about that. I mean, what happened, right? I mean, we've got kids, we've had gone out together, and kind of what happened. And boy, we're busy and you just lose track. And you need someone like you or the RDA or our wives a little bit to say, look, you two guys got to get together more often, and we have been. And this isn't in writing. We're putting our trust that the room tax will be used, as the county executive said, to really help these two areas. And everybody in this room has to agree that if these two areas are successful, everything's going to be successful. And we have plans. Our plans cost money. The county has plans, and those plans cost money. And we just want to make sure that we're looking at those together as one organization. So, where was this? That's a good question. I mean, it just needs to happen more often. We need to spend more time together. He owes me lunch, so there's a lot of things that we can do together, and we just need to do that, Alderman.
He owes you lunch, what about us? We didn't vote.
Let's see,
Well, I'd like to just offer a comment as chairman of this, of the RDA, and we really appreciate the appearance of both Mayor Jim Schmidt and County Executive Troy Streckenbach, because I think this is something that we were sort of looking forward to, is we all have to be on the same page. And I think what you're saying and what we know already, that we're all going to be on the same page, and this makes our job a lot easier. Because all along, we've all supported the room tax and the sales tax, but we just didn't know what route we're going to take to get there. And I think that we're going to do that now. And I think the only reason that Green Bay, Brown County are where they are in the state of Wisconsin is because we're all working together with common goals. And in the long run, that's the most important for this as a community of just over 200,000 people.
Right.
So, thank you.
Do you have any questions?
Harry, I'd love to just want to take to both of you. That was real leadership, and that's greatly appreciated. At least from my standpoint, I think I speak for others who are probably in the room today, but that takes a lot of courage. And that's not easily done in today's environment. So I appreciate it just from my personal standpoint, and I just would want both of you to be recognized for that. Now, my next is more of a clarifying question, just to make sure I'm not assuming too much. I think you're both telling us, hey, let's move this forward. Let's vote yes on this today. We're not making written amendments, because there's a lot of municipalities that would have to go through. But we're telling you in spirit, we will work together to maintain the Expo Center, the downtown Green Bay, the KI Center campus. We're going to get these infrastructure projects moving forward and make the city and the county and the municipalities in total a better place.
Yes.
That's correct.
Another clarifying question, are we saying then that we agree with the cooperative agreement on July 13th? That we're saying?
Correct.
Right? Good. One comment in regard to that agreement. I think that the three staffs have to be commended for getting to this point, because the rough draft didn't look like this. But the staff in Green Bay, Ashwaubenon, and the county worked hard to get it to this point. So I really want to commend all the folks that worked on that, because like I said, the first rough draft didn't look like this at all. So that's a great job.
I'd like to comment too. I still have concerns about the future, the ability to do what the two of you now have come to an agreement, but as you both said very publicly, you're not going to be here at the end of this deal, nor any of us are going to be here. So if there's some way to genetically take this and plant it in the future executives and mayors, that'd be wonderful. But I also think it's very important that we, as the Redevelopment Authority, move in as one unit, as one body in this vote. I think we're going to do it. Good job. Better communication next time would help us.
You're right.
Joe, you must have a comment.
Nope, no comment.
Can't believe that.
All right,
It's my wife's birthday, so I'm leaving, but I'm trusting you. Do you have any other questions for me?
Wish her
Or the
had
county exec?
that's right.
Okay.
Kevin, was anyone else going to be talking, do you
I
know?
don't think that's right. I don't think
The
it's
floor is open if anybody wants to.
Yeah. Is there anyone else who would like to talk? The floor is open at this time, otherwise we'll vote to close the floor.
motion.
Alderman Jim, I guess,
I just wanted to clarify something.
Right?
Maybe I misunderstood from the most recent comments that were made, but Has there been any changes to the document since you had it before you last time?
None, right, Kevin?
Correct.
No,
So the document is exactly the same?
Right.
Because, I mean, there was talk that it's really come a long way since the original document.
Well,
But it is the same document,
Yep.
correct?
but it's a long ways from the original rough draft that was
Oh, you mean
initiated.
a long time?
Yes, the first rough draft, yes.
All right, I misunderstood that.
Okay.
Make a motion to return to regular order?
the motion to return to regular business by Joel, second by Matt, those in favor say aye. Opposed, carried. Okay, the question before us is action on the amended and restated cooperation agreement regarding room tax revenues.
I make a motion to approve.
Motion by Gary, second by
Second.
Joel, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Bang! Meeting adjourned.
That's why I wanted to.